I'm just going to bring us in. We're going to go.
Okay,
Nerves and all. Do it and do it scared. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast. Look at my chair. Like if you like, I'm like, where am I going? This chair is like possessed. I don't know. Is yours moving?
Yeah, but I'm also sitting on it weird.
I'm like, I feel like I need to like hold myself to the desk or I'm just going to drift away. All right, you guys, I'm here with Ashley and we did a podcast once before and it did not get published. I don't know why. It like didn't record. Technology was not being our friend that day. So she is one of my licensed artists and we're at the event today. Yeah. And I was like, Ashley, do you want to do a podcast? And she was like, absolutely not. And I was like, perfect. You're coming with me. But it's funny because I've been doing this for so long that I feel like I've kind of gotten used to being on camera and talking and interviewing. And it's kind of fun for me to get to know my licensed artists a little bit more. So I do want to hear a little bit of your story on this podcast because we didn't get to hear it. Well, we did get to hear it, but it wasn't recording.
Round two.
And then a lot of our listeners said that they liked topics. So I used to do this podcast with one of my co-trainers and it was just her and I every week. And so it's not like I was interviewing her every week. So we would always come up with like a topic, whether it was like balance or something in business or, you know, something artists struggle with behind the chair.
I'm into it.
So
what's the topic?
So we created a cup of topics.
Okay.
And today the topic is mastering client consultations. But
ooh, that's a good one.
It's a good one. But before we start, tell us where you're from, the name of your salon. Tell us a little bit about you.
I am from the Los Angeles area. I am in Burbank, California, and my salon's called Bespoke Extension Lounge. And I'm in the middle of kind of rebranding everything. I've been working on that for the last couple months.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a nice little vibe. It's a studio space. I really like the fact that I can actually focus on my client and not have a million distractions going on. And because clients are there for, several hours, they're able to take Zoom calls and they're able to, we do like lunch and we make it like a little bit fancy.
More of an experience.
And my clients absolutely love it. So for anybody that has a studio, you probably understand, but there are definitely little things that I've invested in that make the experience a little bit nicer.
I think that's like the thing now is the experience is what's really drawing the clients in. Because think about it, like with social media now, there's so many pretty photos and there's a lot of really good work out there. When I started my brand, I think one of the only reasons I kind of got a little bit ahead of the curve is I jumped on Instagram really early and I learned how to take decent hair photos. And so people like started to notice that. But now there's like a lot of good work. And so I always am encouraging all my artists. I'm like, hey, like don't catfish somebody. Like if you're like, you got to have your experience matched. Like extensions is a luxury service. So
yes. And the other thing too is to have like what's really nice about being in a studio and all that stuff is the fact that I can control what's going on inside the salon as far as my photos and things. I can invest in nice pieces. I can invest in, camera equipment and things like that and not have somebody messing with it.
Have you always been in a studio?
I have been for the past like 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ashley's a licensed artist, which means she's gone through my academy program. It's not an easy feat. It is not like a one-day certification. It's a lot. It's literally like most of our artists are on that list. It took at least a year. So
I rolled in at I think it was right before 2020.
Oh, okay.
That was a real rough time.
A weird year, but we're still recovering from that.
A little bit of a setback.
But I feel like though you did it, you went through it, you're kind of like, you're still evolving, you know what I mean? Like you said, like you're kind of redoing your personal branding a little bit.
Yeah, there's always a next step. And one of the things that we're working on right now in the room next door is kind of getting, for me, it's knowing that there's always another step and not putting so much pressure on yourself to have such a mountain in front of you and trying to get to the top. That's something that you have to take little steps at a time.
Yeah. I think with you, because we've done a call together and things like that. You're like me in the sense that you get in your own way. Like you get in your head.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be like, Ashley,
we're going
I'm
all
like,
the way there.
Just go. I'm like, I know you're going to go there. Yes.
At a time.
But isn't that truthful? Like, it's like, you know where you want to go. And then sometimes it can be so overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
That you're stuck on like 10 steps ahead instead of like stuck on like, okay, well, the first thing I have to do is get a better client software program. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. You're like, okay, well, the first thing I have to do is I need to invest in a better camera backdrop or whatever it is. So it's just crazy. I always say, like, make a list of things you need to do, even if they're like stupid things that you know you need to do, and just prioritize. And for me, I always say, like, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
Like, just slow and like, you'll get there. Like, that's better than not like doing anything, right?
Yeah. I think making lists is a really big help for somebody like probably like you and me. I think we might be alike in that way, where you see the big picture, but you almost get overwhelmed with all the details. So having it be like just like tangible things that can happen
right
a little at a time, and almost like focusing, like when I was working on my photo equipment and all of that kind of stuff, just buying one little piece at a time. Don't go like overwhelm yourself and try and like, okay, well, I'm going to buy all these
I've
things.
done that.
Yeah. And you kind of do end up doing that, but getting some nicer equipment and things that will last a little bit longer.
When I first invested in like a camera, I bought this lens. I think it was like $2,000.
Oh, no.
I didn't even know how to use my fucking camera, but I thought if I bought a $2,000 lens, I'd automatically be a pro.
Right.
And so then I'm like, I don't even know, like to this day when I teach photos, you see me, I teach with the most basic camera, the most basic lens.
I like that you do that because it makes it really easy to understand from a consumer standpoint and from somebody who's really just trying to master the art of taking good pictures, because that took me a long time to really wrap my head around.
Yours have gotten like I've watched you and I'm like, oh, like they keep getting better and better. But
I know, I love it.
It's like, you do like, you kind of like, you figure it out little by little, and you can't get good at anything unless you're willing to like start something, right? Yes. That's what I always say. I'm like, it's like, you see the big vision of where you want to go, but you have to kind of like let the ego down a little bit and be like, okay, well, I'm not quite there yet. And I have to just be willing to kind of like try. And even if I don't love my photos or I don't love this, like, you stay consistent in doing it, right?
Yeah, and because everything's on Instagram, you have like almost this like portfolio in this photo album, which is funny because like leading back to the topic of like the consultation, the client has already kind of stalked you online,
right?
When they come in there, and I actually went through, and you got on me because I didn't have that many posts on there, because I'm like, I went back through and I went to the bottom and I was like, nope, these look like crap. Like,
you're like, get rid of these.
Yeah. Then I had like this, I'm like, I only wanted what was like looking really good. But after I've kind of evolved and grown, I think that because my photos are better now, I can now you feel better
about it. Yeah. It's funny. I'll go through phases where I'll be like, you guys are, because I don't run all my pages, and I'm like, that's starting to look messy. Like, let's pick consistent fonts, consistent backdrops, consistent, like consistency, honestly, like looks cleaner on the feed. So I want to really dive into our topic today, which is mastering the consultation. So it's crazy because I feel like a lot of people, do you do phone consultations or in person or both?
I try to do them on FaceTime. I like to see their face. I like to see their eyes. I like to see their reactions.
Connect with them.
Yes. But I feel like by the time they actually get through everything and you schedule a call with you, they're almost sold already. So it makes it kind of easy. But I feel like if you take a lot of those steps in the, to set everything up where they can come in there and they trust you and they say, oh, she does good stuff, then it makes it a lot easier for the person when they do book the phone consultation. I think I've only not closed like twice.
Oh, okay.
Like ever.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because I've been behind the chair for over 20 years, and it was unheard of to do consultations over the phone. Mm-hmm. And the reason I started doing that is when I started my brand, I started having people reach out to me from like different states, and they were like, hey, I saw your stuff. I really because like you said, they kind of stalk you before they finally reach out. And I would be like, well, they're like, do you take out of state clients? And I'd be like, well, let's send me some photos of your hair. Let's jump on a call. Yeah. And that's literally how it started. And I had been doing hair long enough to where if I saw photos of their hair, like I knew, can I make this look good or not? Mm-hmm. And then it just came down to making sure I had the proper hair in stock.
Right. Well, that's like, it's so important to have the actual conversation over the phone. If not, with all the photos and everything collecting into, you have to have all that before you can have the consultation. Yeah. And then the consultation, I actually take my time. I sit there and I talk to them and really try to understand what they want, what their needs are, like what do you expect out of this? And then I ask them questions like, how tall are you? Right. Things like that, in order to kind of gauge, will like a longer length look good on you?
Right.
because sometimes it's like if they get 20, I've had girls come in where they've gotten like 18-inch hair. And I'm like, you should have gotten it. And then they regret it immediately.
Like,
I'm
okay.
I tried to tell you.
Well, it's funny because the more you do consultations, it's almost like you have a little bit of a script, right? Like for me,
there's a flow.
There's kind of like, I like to look for little pieces to connect with the client. And when I do my consultations, the first thing I would ask them is, what are you struggling with your current hair? And what extensions have you tried? Yeah. And then it's like, oh, I've tried tape, I've tried bonded, I've tried this kind of row, this kind of that. And then I just kind of sit and I'm like, oh, okay. I let them do all the talking.
Yeah.
And then I literally just listen. I just listen.
You're like, well, let's look at the problems, list them out.
And then it's like,
let's solve it.
Exactly. And then you're like, okay, MVR is your solution. Here you go. And then they're immediately like, okay, like, let's do it.
My favorite is when they're single and they like want a confidence boost. I'm like, okay, like
I got this.
Have to, like, I'm telling you. And then I think that they understand there's a little bit of like a confidence from where I'm coming from, where they can feel that I'm like,
you're certain in it sells.
Yes, this will change your dating game. This will change your life. This will change so many things, your pictures, everything. And then they are just like where do I sign?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they come in and then they get it and they're just like, I'm like, I told you.
You found like the entry point. I do that with like moms. I'll hear kids in the background. I'm like, how many kids do you have? Yeah. Oh my God, extensions are going to make your life so easy. Like your hat's going to look cute. Your ponytails are going to look cute.
No, I'm like, your dating profile's you're going to get so many more dates.
That's funny. So do you have kids? I can't remember.
No.
You don't have kids. Okay. So I was like, so you can relate on like that angle. Like, and I'm like immediately like, do you have kids? Do you have dogs? Like,
yeah. And that's actually a pretty good point, is to find something that you can connect with. And I've sort of made that like my brand, and I've sort of gone in that direction, is the single girls, the girls who,
want the confidence.
Yes. And I mean, there's something for everybody, but I think though that's sort of become my like niche recently. And it's kind of fun.
I think that's good though too, because it's something that you can do inside your marketing, and it seems authentic.
Yes. Well, it has to be. Yeah. And it has to be like relevant to you in some kind of way also, which is probably the biggest thing, is if you're looking for your target like audience too, you want to find something that you can relate to.
Yeah, exactly.
And I find many of my clients are single women, of all ages. I have a little bit of, moms and things too, but I really connect well with the the boss ladies that are just,
it's kind of where you can kind of relate to them. Well, and it's funny too, because that was the thing, like in counsel, when everybody was trying to figure out their niche and their angle. And I was like, you guys, your niche is like, what is authentic to you? Like you say, like you want a certain woman, but I'm like, but are you that certain woman? Because you're going to attract back what you are. So it's like, for me, I'm a mom, I'm a businesswoman. So I can attract a lot of different angles. I can't really attract the single girls. I guess I could. I'm like,
you totally can.
I'm like, hey, you want to get married? Like,
yeah, well, that's the thing.
Get some hair in. You're going to feel good. I'm a firm believer though in like, there's two things that sell when it comes to hair extensions. They do really make your life easier.
Oh,
and they add confidence. I'm like, you tell a woman that she's going to look hotter and feel more confident and have it be easier. She's like, where do I sign up? You're 100%. Like, perfect. And I also, the other key point I want to always hear is like, it's not going to compromise my hair. No. Because extensions have a bad rap. So it's like clean, good work, and it won't compromise the hair. All the little like selling points that you add into your consultation. So when your clients apply for a consultation, like what's your process like?
Well,
like, do they fill out the application and then
usually
like self-schedule?
Honestly, most of the time I just get like a random application. Someone's been like looking me up or whatever, but I get a lot of referrals.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of like how my business sort of has worked for me. And that's great. Like, you just need a couple girls in your clientele that are like your diehards.
Yeah.
And they're like, because they're believers too.
Right.
And you hype them up and then they feel good. And then they just exude all this confidence and everyone's like, I want that.
Yeah. They're like, what do you go to? Yeah. It's so funny. I'm such a sucker for a referral. Like I will always go to my friend. Like, say if I wanted a doctor, I'd go to my doctor friend and say, hey, who do you know that does the best, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And then, or like I have one of my clients, if she's in the medical field too, I'm like, okay, who's the best dentist or who's the best? And that's how I have found people. And then I go and like stalk their stuff and like, I'm like, okay, do I like this recommendation.
It's almost like unnecessary though to stalk them because you're still going to make it, you might go and have that conversation. I'm much more of the type of person who wants to have the conversation with people. I don't really want to have to jump through a bunch of hoops.
Yeah.
That's not
you want it made easy.
I want the referral, somebody that's like you can trust and they come with somebody who's vouching for them.
Yeah.
So that's what works for me.
I would agree. I had one time where I took a recommendation and the result was not great.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's okay. Because the next time I realized the recommendation matters, but so does the research behind it.
Okay.
So that's why I always say to
well, especially if it's visual.
Yes.
Yes.
It really, really was. It was actually I've had 3 boob jobs and it was my second one and it was not great. And then my third one I was like, I'm gonna find the best out there. So I'm like, all right. But then I did like a thorough consultation and I was like, oh, wow. Like the consultation really is key. Like you have to feel comfortable and feel like not only do you connect,
there's
but
a vibe.
That person.
Yeah. And you have to really feel that and want to connect with that person also.
Right.
So that's another key to a really good consultation, I think, is just really connecting with them, understanding their needs, listening to them. And
I always tell my artists that struggle with the consultation, I'm like, you're trying to sell too hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're kind of coming off a little bit like untrustworthy. Like, because if you're trying to push it that hard, like for me, if somebody's like trying to like, say for example, like I'll go to like Nordstrom's or something and I'm browsing and somebody's like following me around, like, can I help you? Can I help you? I'm almost like turned off. I'm like, Kate, I get you want the sale.
Like I'll come find you.
Okay, exactly. I'm like, I need some space. So for me, it's like, if somebody's very confident in offering me a product, they're like, hey, this makes sense for you. And it doesn't seem so salesy.
Yeah, there's nothing worse.
Yeah. So I always tell people, I'm like, you're not really selling it. You're listening to their problems and their concerns and you're offering up yourself and MBR as the solution. And if you don't think it's a good fit, like I've had some crazy consultations where like so many red flags go off that I'm like, hey, you know what?
It's going to be a no.
I know. It's like I'm saying no. I'm like, you know what? I think you should think about this. Like, I don't ever say no, but I'm like, I'm booked out for the next 8 months. Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
But our process, we usually have everybody fill out an application and then they can self-schedule a consultation. If they don't, we have their contact information on the application.
Yeah.
And we reach out to them because there's been a lot of times where I'll fill out an application, but I don't have my schedule in front of me, so I don't schedule it. And then if somebody reaches back up, I always say like the consultation can only happen with a follow-up and follow through, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you offer somebody like a 15-minute window, it's less daunting than a lot of people don't want to come all the way to the salon because a lot of people are traveling for their hair. So having it be, a quick 10, 15 minute, it always goes over that.
Right.
So just prepare for that. But just that's less scary for somebody to have a conversation. And I think people actually have a lot of questions. So it's really helpful for them to be able to have that time with you where you can answer whatever, like, what do you want to know? Right.
I always think of it too, like it's extensions. It's not like a $200 color. It's literally like it's a $3,000 to $5,000 service. And then it's like the maintenance, like you're looking at the yearly income on that client that you're like,
and it needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
So there's no oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Some people probably don't know how
pricing.
anything works. So I usually break it down for them, start to, a year from now, like what's that going to really look like? How often are you going to come in?
Yeah.
Like, how fast does your hair grow? There's a lot of questions, and a lot of it is just getting to know the person.
Yeah.
And asking, I don't really have a list of things. It's like I said, it's like
you
a
go
flow.
with flow. Yeah.
But I've been doing this a while now too. So
you're comfortable doing it.
Yeah. And if anybody ever has questions, like reach out to somebody who's been doing it and maybe even schedule a consultation with somebody.
Yeah. See how their flow is. It's funny when I was first starting my brand and I wanted to know like what extensions were out there and how they sold them, I literally called, I just cold called like 20 salons because I was like, I wanted to see what their process was. Yeah. It's like research,
Totally.
Like, hey, let's see how this goes.
I've been wanting to get into TikTok, so I've been stalking all these people. I'm like, before I jump in there, no, I know.
Every time I watch TikTok, I'm like, I lost 10 minutes of my life. Never gonna get that.
They call it TikTok.
It's so bad. I can't handle it. And when I watch hairdressers on there, I'm like, the only ones that I find interesting are the ones that like are a little bit wacky. And I don't know if I'd ever book with them.
It's a little more raw. I think Instagram's a little more cultured or like cultivated, I should say. Like it's more processed.
Right.
And
I call TikTok the wild, wild west.
Oh, yeah.
So with your consultation at the end of it, do you collect a deposit over the phone?
For sure. 100%.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's funny because that's one of the things we teach inside the academy. I mean, you got to invest in the hair for the client. And that was one thing I did wrong in the beginning of my career. I'd get so excited and I put somebody on the books. I'd go spend $500 or whatever on hair, and then they'd cancel on me. And I was like, I'm out $500. I mean, eventually I used it on somebody else.
Truth be told, though, it's more than just getting the money for the hair.
Yes.
It's more of like knowing that they're serious.
Right.
Because what if they flake?
Exactly.
Like,
you're like, I have this slot on my book.
Not only that, but you bought hair for them potentially, or, you know.
I always say it's not a hair deposit because then clients think they think they know exactly what you spend on the hair, and you never know. Like obviously we mark up the hair. That's part of how we make the money.
For sure.
And so I always say it's to reserve your spot or your place on the books. It's not a hair deposit. This is just the deposit, and then when they come in for their appointment, we apply that to the actual total.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I love it. I feel like not everybody does consultations this way, and
how could you not?
I know.
How could you possibly
because
go
you're in
blindly?
The culture.
But like, if you really think about it, if somebody came to you just like, oh, can you do my hair extensions? Yeah. Like, how do you even know where to begin to know that you have the right things?
Right. Well, and even
like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, it's $1,000 in the $1,000. You can't just like stick them on your books.
No.
I had one really bad experience where I got a little ego, and I was like, I can do anybody's hair. And this girl sent me photos in her application. They were kind of blurry. I was like, yeah, I can do it. I like totally saw so many red flags in the consultation, but I was like, hey, it's fine. I booked her, and she had the scariest density I've ever seen.
Oh,
and she had like, she lifted up her sides, and it was like, where am I going to attach this to?
You're not.
No, I did. I should have said, I'm going to refund your deposit. I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable doing this. But I wanted to be her savior. Mm-hmm. And I was like, she's like, yeah, I've tried all these other extensions, and I felt so bad. And I was like, okay. And not only did she want extensions, but of course she wanted like 24-inch.
I think I've heard this story before.
It was like the worst experience of my career. Anyways, long story short, I put them in her hair and they didn't stand. Of course they didn't stand because they were too heavy and she had no density. And I was trying to save her, even though I was trying to talk her into like less hair and shorter. And she was like, no. So I also let the client dictate the appointment. Mm-hmm. Stupid. Mm-hmm. And so 2 weeks later, she's like, they're slipping out. They're falling out. And I'm like, of course they are. I fixed them for her. Then same thing. They kept slipping out. Then she was like, this is bullshit. I want a full refund. I'm like, I'm not going to give you a full refund. I'll refund you like, the cost of the hair or whatnot. Anyways, she lost her mind and went on like every social media platform, Yelp, YouTube. She even made a YouTube video.
Oh my gosh!
Saying that all of this density was from like me, but I was like, no, that was there before you got there.
Right. You're like,
so when doing a consultation, it's very crucial. If you don't feel comfortable or you sense any of those red flags, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
And I'll also add to this topic one more thing that I was just thinking about. I actually have a consultation again with them, knowing that they might want to, like we talk about it. Like one of the things that I like to do is actually have the client look forward to their next appointment, talk about when they're going to get new hair, things like that, kind of mapping that out in advance and having that consultation again.
Right. We're almost like reminding them
well, not just that, but also if you know that they're thinking about maybe doing something a little bit different, if you're used to them doing the same thing all the time, you have to almost have a consultation again. You can't just do it one time, even though you get to know your clients and all that stuff. I always like to have, even sometimes they'll call me.
It's just managing expectations so that like if anything happens, you're like, remember we discussed this in our original consultation.
Yeah, and I write down color
take
ideas
notes,
when they're in the salon, and if they maybe want to add some low lights or something like that, I will actually jot down what we're discussing because I'm like, I don't want to have to go through this process again. So I do take detailed notes.
I think do you do that with each appointment too? Like do you have appointment cards where you take
I do, but
I think it's crazy with extensions, and you can tell me if you've experienced this, but like you'll tell clients, hey, the hair will last up to 6 months. Like it can last longer, but I always say 6 months because it's like the safe zone, right?
Right.
And then you have
average.
You have clients that come in and they're like, oh, I just got new hair. You have to go back to your notes and be like, no. We only replace. 100%. You have to tell them because otherwise they think you're taking advantage of them. And you're like, nope. Remember, we rotated half the hair last time, which means that half of this hair in your head is actually 8 months old. And then they're like, it's not even like.
They feel like they just did it, and you're like,
and
actually.
So you have to tell them so they don't, because they're like feeling like they're getting taken advantage of. And so you're like, no, I have it in my notes. So I always like recommend write down when you replace the hair, and
receipts.
then remind your client. And it's not like an attacking thing. It's just like, oh no, like we actually, because you're looking to have their hair look amazing, right? Mm-hmm. You're not trying to like rip them off. You're just saying like, hey, we replaced 4 of the pieces last time.
Right.
The other 4 are due to be replaced now. So.
They know.
I think they do and they don't because all clients are like, I just did it. And I'm like, oh, no, you didn't. I'm like, you can keep it in, but that's why you're experiencing a little bit of like shedding or tangling is because now you need new hair again. Exactly. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So keeping detailed notes is a really big one for me. Mm-hmm. And just always, like you said, managing the expectations and having those consultations again and again and really kind of, I don't even know, like just knowing what they want next. Because sometimes people want to change their whole look.
Yeah, I get bored easy. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. My hair I replace a few pieces every time, but that's because I own a hairline.
Yeah,
I don't do a lot with my color. So if I get bored, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna steal a few new pieces and mix it in there, make it look like I got some red or whatever's going on. But it's fun. It's something to do. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast today and sharing about our topic was consultations and mastering the consultations. Like I said, it's something that's like in our culture and in the academy and how we do it. It's normal.
It gets easier.
It gets easier. In the beginning, it feels weird because you're like, I've only done consultations in person. And like, there's like the old way of doing things. And then there's the new way of doing things that's more effective with your time that we have proven that works great with doing consultations over the phone.
Who doesn't want to be prepared? Like, that's the whole thing. Like having everything, just roll out nicely.
Right.
Then there's really very, very little room for error.
And it's like when your clients show up, even if it's like your first time meeting them, you kind of feel like you know them a little bit. So it takes off a little bit of that like scary, like uncomfortableness. So I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You guys tune in every single week for another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast. We are hairstylists in the industry trying to change the game one artist at a time. If you want more information about my education, go to mbr.education. We have monthly in-person classes. We have an online course. And of course, we have my extensive academy program, which is really diving into the business, marketing, sales, and structure for artists behind the chair, mixed with the technique of natural beauty row hair extensions. So if you're ready to level up your game in 2024, we're already going into 2024. Holy smokes. Then go to mbr.education. All right, guys, bye. We'll see you next week.
Bye.